ask you some questions. Feel free to ask a question anytime, and to, you know, and we'll kind of share just what we know, and we'll be available. I've got business cards here if you want them later, and that's pretty much it. First, I got to do the legal disclaimer because we have to do that, and it pretty much says all this is based on guidelines and practices within the mortgage industry. It's not going to include everything, so we can't guarantee any specific guidelines, you know, but that's what we're there for. And as we get through this, if you have any questions, we can narrow it down and tell you specifically about Arundel's stuff and what we do, which might be a little different than the big guns, you know, and a little more in your favor. So, and the focus here isn't really a lot of in-depth about the workings of the industry and the underwriting. We plan to do something if everybody's interested in the fall that will drill down a little bit more. This is more to help you make a good decision as to whether you think owning a house or renting a house is better for you. Some of the things that you'll have to think about, you know, if you're thinking about wanting to get a mortgage to buy a house, and just a nutshell as to how we look at things, and then we'll go into more depth in the fall. So things we're going to go through in our agenda is we're going to talk about getting ready to buy a home. That's going to be the first section. About buying your home, how to get your mortgage, closing your loan. Anybody think of another name for closing a loan?
Settlement.
Settlement.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Closing. Oh, you got closing. Duh.
Yeah, a lot of people outside the industry, when you hear, some people even within our bank, you know, because they don't do loans, they think of close as pay off. You know, but closing a loan is actually just going to settlement and signing all the papers, getting all the money.
I never understood that part of closing.
It's misleading
A lot
when
of
you hear
people
that.
don't, because that name is something we associate with something totally different.
Something
We
that's
close
totally
the-
over.
We close the
Right.
door, but
Right.
this is opening up
Opening of a loan.
Right.
your loan, yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. And then we think it's important to talk about being a successful homeowner. Things you gotta think about, you might say, yeah, I'd love to get a home, but things you might have to think about once you have one to successfully keep it up and take care of it. Credit, we're just gonna kinda go right through this because I know that Lisa and Sarah R., who works with me at the bank, has already done a pretty intensive thing on that, and even had a lawyer here to talk to you about it. So those of you who were at them, you know, that's a whole seminar, but you probably know, and for anyone who wasn't here, credit comes from what's called a credit reporting agency, and
What? I'm bad, I got bad.
oh, okay. And please tell me anytime you need me to talk louder. Credit, what we do is we get a credit report from a third party, which is called a credit reporting agency, that all the lenders and other people send them reports, say on how you're paying your bills, things like that. And so one of the first things we'll do is order that and see what bills you have, how they're being paid, what the amounts are, what your payments are. You know, and I think they went over establishing good credit, how to regain good credit. Once again, that's not for today. That was a previous seminar, which probably could be repeated if there's an interest next year. And here's an important thing for you though. You should ask for a copy of your credit report because you're entitled, even if you're not applying for a loan, you're entitled to one free credit report a year. Do you have information on that in our stuff?
We were just gonna verbally give the site.
Yeah.
And also that
We
you can,
covered that in the last
did?
seminar, we
Okay.
did.
yeah,
all three
there's some
credit
sites you have to
reporting
Yeah.
pay for
And
to
if
get
any-
your credit reporting, you don't need to do it.
If anybody
Right.
needs it,
Yeah, right.
Yeah, this
We
is
don't have to
free,
pay for
there.
them?
and it's straight
If you go to
from
credit card, maybe.
the horse's mouth. So, so that's pretty much it on credit. Like I said, you guys got a lot more than that from our other geniuses at Arundel. Let's talk about budget a little bit, okay? I know you don't want to do it, but
I just got out of that.
I want to talk like your mother.
But there's a
Connie
budget
in the
Take
bill.
your medicine. it's
We have
good
a
for you.
budget,
Lady.
council.
I was gonna say,
Oh,
Miss
nice.
Connie here?
Yeah,
Yeah, Miss Connie is here, as a
Yeah, she's
matter of
here.
I
fact.
just got out.
I just
Okay.
talked to her, she's on the board, I'm on the board of directors of Hope for All.
Oh, wow.
And
really?
Connie's
So you
our-
did Miss
the
Connie
president
very
of our-
well.
Oh, yeah, she's awesome.
Mhm.
She is one awesome lady.
Yeah, she does our
Um,
finances.
Nice.
So the important thing is it doesn't have to hurt. And, you know, I took that one way. It's not hard to do with just a basic budget. Teresa took it, no, you don't have to just not do anything. You can, and her way's good. I'm gonna show you a copy of a budget that I use, I've used for years, that I zeroed out, and I'm gonna offer to email it to you if any of you want it emailed, so you can use it. But you'll see, well, you won't see, because I took all my personal stuff out, but I budget $200 a month for my wife and I for spending money, so, you know, after the first pay of the month, I go home, I get $200 out of the ATM, and I hand her 100 and say, this has gotta last for a month, you know? I budget personally a little money for traveling, because I like to travel. So, so I think Teresa's version trumps mine when it doesn't have to hurt.
And what I meant about that was
Go ahead.
that you could still go out to dinner or go and get something to eat for lunch or something like that. It doesn't have to take all the fun out of life. You know, if you budget it just to do it once a month rather than a couple times a week or something like that.
Yeah. You'll see this more when I pull the budget up, but identify your expenses, put it down in writing, man, that really helps me. Because I'm a seat of the pants guy, and I'll spend the money before I know it's gone, you know? And then think of, when you get a budget made up, think of simple logical changes, like if I cut this back on my cable, if I, and we'll talk about a little bit of that too as we get into this thing. So let's go, let me just kind of go and pull up my budget spreadsheet. I know Miss Connie shares one with you too, but,
Now, is Connie available here
she's.
as your
she's-
resource?
Count-
Make an appointment
appointments.
with her?
So, well, that's one thing I didn't take out. I'm Charlie, my wife's name is Laura.
Yeah.
But, you know, I put up here updated, so I know I do this once a quarter, every 3 months. So I put that in to remind me when. And this needs a little more fine tuning, it looks like. This is like an up, when you go to the eye doctor. Is it better now? Is it better now?
That looks better.
Oh, no, it looked worse than me, but okay.
Depends
Say,
on
I
our
need my
glasses,
glasses,
right?
Don't ask me,
And
my
when I sit down
contacts
here,
are
it's- so anyway, what you do here is I break it out into revolving, like that's credit cards, stuff like that, where the payment might change. Fixed rate, which for me is car loan, for example, student loans on there for me.
Sorry.
That was me.
I'm not gonna tell you on the first one.
Oh, I know exactly what
And then living expenses like your cable, your internet, gas and electric, auto insurance, food, yeah, things like that.
I do have a question,
Go ahead.
if it's okay. Cable,
Anytime, yes.
cable and internet, that's a luxury. It's not, I mean, sometimes it's a necessary,
It
but
is.
it is a luxury.
It is, but if you're gonna have it, you should know what it is.
Yes.
Teresa, I think we're gonna power off,
Oh, okay.
because I split screens. or because, I don't know, because it's hooked up, I don't know why it would do that. So anyway, but that's a good comment. But once you get your budget, and you see all that, and then what I do down here is, for me personally, I put my salary and my wife's salary, but I put take home. I put after the taxes are taken out, medical insurance, anything like that, because that's really what you have to pay your bills, right? So let's just do a quick example here. If I have a credit card, I'm not gonna mess with interest rate or balance here, but if I have a credit card that I'm paying $50 a month in the payment, okay? Okay, and I got another one where I'm paying $25 a month. Okay, so in revolving, I'm paying $75. If my car loan's $200, and then I do have cable, which is these days way too much. Let's put $50 in. I know, that's, oh, that's,
I go, so where you get cable?
all right, folks, I'll put $125.
There you go.
Oh, there you go. Now we're talking.
I just don't let people have.
It's called Dish.
Gas and
Networks,
electric,
50.
you know, with opening the windows at night, it's cheaper than when you got the air running at 100 degrees. Well, let's just put an average.
We live in place that you can't open our windows. You might wake up with somebody standing in there.
And then auto insurance, food, like I usually budget $500 a month for groceries. And gas for your car, you gotta get where you're going, you gotta get here to hear these marvelous presentations. I'm saying that in case there's an evaluation. So let's say $100 a month. So that's just for illustration. So that tells me that your monthly expenses are $1,025. And like I said before, I encourage on savings deposits, pay yourself first. Put
We
about
talked
25.
about that too, always pay
I
yourself first.
figure you did.
Yeah.
And then tithe, you know, I happen to believe in giving a certain percentage of what I make to my church and other missions and stuff like that, you know. So, but that, and my spending money I told you about, but you get the point, right? You put it all in there, that's $1,325, okay? And then when you put your salary in, let's say you made $2,000 a year on one income or month, this is a month, not a year. And then this person makes $3,000 a month. What this will do for you is on this side over here, it's kind of summing it up for you. It's telling you what your total expenses are, and then it's subtracting your income and saying, okay, in this case, you have a surplus of $3,675. I wish, but you understand what I say, you're gonna fill in more boxes,
Right.
okay? You're gonna have your rent, you're gonna have your mortgage. Mortgage is a lot of that, maybe, or rent. But that's the point. But let's say you go down here and you see you have $3,675 extra. And you can afford it. But let's say this was a negative. Let's say we did fill everything out. You got to pay $500 a month in auto insurance because of your reckless habits. You got I say that, but mine's about that for 2 cars. And then you put a couple $100 spending money for the family, you know. And let's say you did have rent or a mortgage. And I'm just trying to get this really down to where
It's a little high, John.
yeah.
We live in a mansion.
I don't. I live in a row house. Grew up in Allentown. Townhouse, so I'm comfortable. So you got $975, okay, and you're saying, once you get that down, you say to yourself, okay, how can I get more money? Well, you use the bit of wisdom that we just got and say, you know what, I don't really need cable. Now you got $1,100 extra. And if that takes that from a negative to a positive, and what you do too is when you're gonna get a mortgage, put your potential mortgage in there to see what you got left afterwards. So that's pretty much it, you know? I'd be happy, like I said, to, I got business cards here, if you ask, my email's on it. Shoot me an email and say, would you send me that budget application? And I would be absolutely happy to do it. I know, like I said, I know Connie supplies one. And then one other thing I like to do is once I say, here's what my budget is, I want to go back and look at what I actually paid. So I go back and put in what I paid for groceries, what I paid for gas, things that aren't set, to keep myself honest and let me know if I should change that gas, if I should change that food
Right.
to $5.25. So that's it.
You
That's
do
pretty-
this every month?
I do it, I go up and upgrade all my bill balances.
That's
and-
good.
And every 3 months, quarterly,
Yeah.
yeah. So I always know, but see, you guys gotta remember, I'm older than you guys. I'm hoping to retire in 3.5, 4 years, so I'm trying to get all my debt paid in. So that's pretty much it. If, do you have any questions about this, or should we just move back on to the presentation?
And since you already have your budget resource here, I'll just hand these out as well. So these are just a little bit more detailed if you're, Charlie's spreadsheet is great. These kind of keep your thought process, oh, what about the birthday gifts, and what about Christmas, and should I budget for that? So we didn't want to bore you with too many pages,
I do have a
but
line on Christmas.
this kind of whittles it down to
But I just
household,
stick it
pet
in, I
supplies.
just stick it in the Arundel Federal Christmas Club.
Yeah.
And I get a check once a year.
Yeah.
We just started a
Yeah.
vacation club
Yeah.
too, which I'm thinking about.
Emergency funds are
Let it
good, I
go,
don't
let
know.
it go before I even know it's there, you know? So let's move on, let's talk about getting
Thank
ready,
you.
in getting ready to buy a home. You know,
Power strip.
I think you really seriously gotta think, is a home right for me? I know one person that I was counseling at my church, and, you know, she just wanted a home, single mom, you know, kids were getting older. She just really didn't want to rent, and she ended up buying a condo, a reasonably priced condo. Within a year, she said, I gotta sell that thing, I gotta get out. You know, I'm not meant to be a homeowner. You know, a lot of people are, but there's nothing wrong if you say, you know, well, for me, renting's better. So what I'm trying to do here, and we can't get this bigger, we try. No, I know what I gotta do, I gotta put it back on.
Yeah, you had it the whole screen.
Yeah, I know what I have to do,
If you want to try,
I gotta put on
then I
slideshow.
can adjust it if you want to try
Yeah,
it.
I'm gonna put slideshow on.
Slideshow.
Again, it goes off when you switch to another program. It'll just be a second.
There we go.
Okay.
Much
Oh, it is a lot better. So just, what you wanna do is look at buying a home versus renting in the two boxes. And the green box, some advantages, and then some things you might wanna consider when you're making your decision. Sort of like your pros and cons list. Like, a house builds equity. You know, you get a sense of community, stability, security. You know, personally, I think you get that with renting too, you know, if you get to know your neighbors. There's independence, you don't have a landlord to answer to, you know, asking, you know, why you drop something on their carpet, you know? And you can, make updates the way you want. You can paint the rooms when you want without asking permission. You can do your landscaping. But on the other hand, you know, when that faucet starts dripping or the toilet won't flush, guess who fixes it? You don't pick up and call your landlord. Yeah. You gotta pay property taxes, which is factored into your rent already, and it'll be factored into your mortgage payment, but you still gotta pay property taxes. So, and then, you know, if you're running into a tough time, you know, renting, you can just move on, get another place. In this case, there's a possibility of foreclosure, losing your equity if things go crazy in the economy like they did a few years ago. And you have less mobility. That goes to moving on. Rent, an advantage is you have little or no responsibility for maintenance. It's easier to move, but you don't get a tax benefit, you don't get equity, you don't get control over rent increases. You know, now your payment can go up because your taxes or insurance go up, but still. And the possibility of evictions there, if, you know, if your landlord decides he wants to do something else. Now we're gonna move into getting ready to buy. Pre-qualification. Pretty much that's where one of our loan originators, for free, will sit down with you and they will, they'll get you to give them all your information, like how much you make, how much you spend, you know, and then you know, credit reports are pretty cheap. What are they running now?
$25 for
25
an
bucks,
individual.
you know, that's probably what it will cost you, but they'll have everything they know to kind of say, okay, here's how much money we think you'll qualify for in buying a house. And maybe the down payment you need. I think you had a comment on that to flesh it out.
How many people, has anyone ever bought a home before or worked with a realtor? And I think the point we wanted to make about the pre-qual, maybe you can jump in here too, is that every realtor you work with wants to see that pre-qualification letter. Because they want to know that they're working with a viable buyer, and so does the seller of the home. You know, they want to make sure that you can afford it if they're going to sign off on that contract and effectively take their home off the multiple list. So,
Even at settlement, you should always ask the other party, have a lawyer there, and ask the other party, is there anything wrong with this house that you're not telling them? Because if you say that statement, and you can buy the house, next thing you know, you got termites, right? I had like 350 bats in my belfry,
Oh,
wow.
and it took me 2 years to get rid of them.
Yeah, yeah.
And they have to,
And they knew it, because the neighbor said they tried 3 years to get rid of them.
and they have to disclose whether something's wrong with the house, right?
There is a property disclaimer that's, you know,
Yeah, but-
within the
But the
contract.
contract
but-
also says, in Latin, buyer beware.
Or they could have sold it as is, sort of, you know.
Yeah.
And that is a real good point. And if, when we do the one in the fall, we're gonna go into something called home inspections. Something that I would recommend you get with before every loan. I think we might touch on
We
it here.
touched on it,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, but we'll go
And,
more into it.
I didn't know I had bats in my belfry until I was in the basement and I was gonna take the drop ceiling out and paint it, put it back up. And I went like this
And
and
they all
all
came
this
out.
bat defecate came down on the floor. I mean, like, I'm talking about
Man,
like 10 years
it's like a
ago.
scene in a movie, man.
10 years ago.
Is that what you're talking
That's it.
But, yeah, just to circle back, that pre-qualification letter is what every realtor, that's the first question they'll ask you.
Yeah.
Is, have you gone to your bank to get pre-qualified? And it is a fairly simple, like Charlie said, it's within an hour turnaround,
It's
if
an
even
easy
quicker.
process.
Yeah,
and that's also free.
that is.
Well, yeah, I think if you, the talk is free, if you wanna kinda go on with the credit report to get all that, it's whatever the credit report wants.
Well, I think when we do that when we do the pre-qualification, it says, like, based on the information you've given us, this is what you would qualify for, but then we still have to do all the,
That's a good point that Teresa and I talked about. Teresa suggested we mention, I was gonna say next.
Yeah. I'm
That's-
sorry. I
No,
tend to
no,
jump.
no.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, you count too. Hey, you never hesitate to tell me what to do any other time. Don't start now. Yeah, so that's what's very important, that, you know, tell them everything, and tell them exactly what it is, because the last thing you want is the bank to go and tell you, here's how much you qualify for, and then pull the credit report or get something else and say, oh, you owe more money than that, you don't qualify for that. And in the meantime, you might have bought your, had your contract on your house and put a deposit in. So let's go to the next thing. Some documents you'll need when you go to the pre-qualification. Tax returns and W-2s, your employment history, which is verbal. You can just say, I worked here for this long, here for this long. It's all on an application we have. Paycheck stubs, savings and checking account statements. Just like paycheck stubs, enough to cover what, 1 month you're going with?
I'd like to see 2 consecutive months.
2 consecutive months, thank you. I told somebody earlier I'd bring things to make me look good, she gets me out of trouble too. And then a couple months of statements, right?
Yep, so basically looking at your checking and savings account statements, number one, to make sure you have enough money to purchase the home. And then also we look for things as far as your pay stubs, are they being directly deposited? Do you have any large deposits, which that could kind of symbolize to us that maybe you got a loan from somebody that's helping you buy the house, and we would just want to know what's the monthly payment, or if you have an obligation to repay. So that's the things we're looking for as far as statements.
So we get an idea of exactly how much you have to pay along with it. So now we're going to move on to the realtor, and Teresa is actually a licensed realtor. So I'm going to ask her to just do a brief thing on the buyer's agent versus seller.
I'll be very brief. I've had my license for about 10 years now. Currently I'm in referral status since I'm working full-time in Arundel, which means I still have to keep up all my continuing education credits, which is good because it keeps me up to date with what's going on out in the real estate and mortgage world. But all that being said, the rule number one, and what I like customers and clients to know right off the bat is, and I think it would be helpful for anyone who, you see a house you like, you want to go to an open house. It's open on Sunday from 1 to 4. You walk in the house and there's going to be an agent there. And that agent's going to tell you all the wonderful, beautiful things about this house and give you a flyer. And number one thing you remember about that is that agent is there for the seller. That agent is not there for you, the prospective buyer. So be careful doing that, number one. And then also, it might be a good idea to ask friends and family, someone that they've worked with before as a realtor is probably your best contact. Ask somebody who knows a realtor and get the name and ask them to represent you and go with you to open houses.
We know a girl called retired.
Yeah.
Miss Wanda.
Well, she might be retired, but she might be like me, where she still has her license and referral. She still has to take her classes and that sort of thing.
Well, she
I think she finally retired.
retired, but she, help us out.
But just keep in mind that if you don't have something saying the seller's representing your interest, they're representing people paying them commission, which is
That's
the person
right.
selling the house.
That's right. And that's one thing I never realized when I was in my 20s and, starting to look for a first home. I didn't realize that. I thought open houses were fun. Let's go see what that house looks like, over in the other community, and didn't realize that real estate agent is representing that seller and is not looking out for your best interest. So, call a realtor up, ask them to meet you. They'll do some comparable analysis of properties that are in the area, how much they cost. They'll want to maybe see your pre-qual letter. But you really don't have to sign on the dotted line until you're ready to with that realtor. The thing about realtors is they don't get paid until the transaction's over. So they'll go with you, and they're not requiring you to pay them a penny. You don't have to pay them for their time to take you to see open houses or houses that you want to look at.
And they're gonna look out for what your best interest is.
Right, absolutely.
Absolutely.
They're they're gonna look out for what Sharon wants and what your specific, what your specific needs are. And by looking at comparables, what other houses are worth in the area, they can tell you, Sharon, they're a little high on this house, we can come down on that. So they're gonna be looking out for you.
Yeah, and they have access to a multiple listing system, which will have comments that you might not know by just seeing an open house ad or something on the internet. I mean, gosh, Zillow or Realtor.com, you can look at a house from 360 view a couple times over, but it might not have that one piece that you need to know about that house that the
Right.
agent would have on the multiple list. So utilize them, use them to your best benefit.
And again, they don't charge you for that.
No, they don't, no.
So, let me ask you something. Any of you guys watch those house buying shows? My wife and I watch that. We love the international, But, what's the first thing they do in the very first? Well, first you get to meet
What you
the
trying to
couple
spend?
word people. Yeah, criteria, okay? The agent sits with them and say, so what are you looking for? Yeah, they always get to the budget so they know where to look, like Teresa and Lise just said. But they say, I like at least 3 bedrooms, I like an open floor plan, and I like this, I'd like that, and then the agent shows them something different. But, so that's what you want to be clear on. Think about that before you meet with your realtor, so that they can best find the houses for you on that multiple list system, in the neighborhood you want to be in. So,
And they always say on those, what must you have?
Right.
There's certain things
What
that
you don't want.
you definitely want.
Kitchen,
Yeah.
Right,
a kitchen.
right, that's
or
nice.
2, the kitchen inside and
And
the
then you get
outside.
to go in and look at houses and say, that's dated, that's dated, that's what they say. Oh, my neighbors are so close. We're up in Hollandtown. I live in a row house in Loch Raven now. Neighbors live close. That can be a good thing.
I mean, unless
So
you
they
wanna
don't
do
get-
the whole Alaskan living off the grid.
Yeah.
I can do that one.
Tiny
Yeah,
houses, man,
no.
that's what I want.
No.
She want a tiny
I want a
house.
tiny
I'm gonna build
house.
you a tiny house. I'm gonna build you.
Oh, there
Hold
you
on,
go.
hold on. There's one right there in front, in your
I'm
front
gonna
yard.
open one, I'm gonna open a whole thing right down here on the water, y'all watch.
Hey, you
So-
buy the one in front of the house.
So still on buying your home, let's go to home buyer checklist, things you gotta think about, okay? Taxes, we talked about that, the age of the home, maintenance issues, are there bats in the belfry? Well,
Or
that comes
snakes.
down later, yeah, or snakes, yeah. Maybe in
Or is
Indiana
your house
Jones is
built
afraid
on
of
a
snakes.
nest of snakes?
The utilities, what's the gas and electric cost you, okay? I guess that sunlight is, like some people say, I want a bright room, my wife, she would have to have a lot of natural light. Surroundings, locations, what neighborhood you wanna live in? You picking it
Safety.
for your, school system, or you picking it for having markets close by,
All of that.
So, and visit it at different times, that's important, because you see people going to work, coming from work. I always look at how people, like in the summer, keep their grass cut,
Right.
get an idea of how the neighborhood's
Even
gonna
like-
be. Yeah.
Like, I notice a lot of people, I know them, I don't wanna take up the time, but people go look at houses like during the day. How about, let's make an evening appointment. Let's
Yeah.
see what's really going on
Well, it's
around
Yeah.
like
here.
You know
after,
what?
after dinner,
When,
yeah,
when
everybody's
everybody
out.
home and.
And
how-
you could even go up and say to someone, how long have you lived here? Do you like this neighborhood? I mean, what's better than
You
talking
wouldn't
to
wanna do
someone?
that after dark here.
But-
How about evening, late afternoon?
That's what
But-
she's talking
but-
about.
Yeah.
But we just got a
Well,
good,
we do
we
that.
got a good point here, like,
Yeah.
you go by during the day, especially during the school year, everything's cool,
Quiet.
But then after you go in at night and then, kids are running around all over the place and, not a bad thing, but it depends, how they hang in, how they acting, So, let's get into, like, you get eventually to the point where, like Lisa said, your agent will work with you, your seller agent. They'll say, here's what the house is listed for, what do you want to offer? you know, and then, any contingencies, I see that as, like
If you
furniture
have,
leaving,
yeah,
stuff like
sure, I
that.
mean, a contingency could be if you see that the roof needs repair, you could offer, you know, a lower price and ask the seller to give you money towards that repair, that sort of thing.
That's the value of a home
Yeah,
inspector, you know,
yeah. We
you
haven't
come
gotten to
back
that
and get
screen
some
yet,
money
but
back.
there's a
But yeah,
screen.
because we're still getting the contract accepted.
Yeah, yeah.
And then counteroffer. You know, you may say, okay, this house is listed for $250,000, I'll pay you $200,000. And then they'll come back real formal, you know, with you initialing, them initialing, saying, no, but we would consider $225,000. And you may say, well, how about $230,000, or you might say done, and it's a deal. So that's the counteroffer.
And it's not unusual for if you have, when you're working with an agent, if they say to you, what do you want to offer? That agent is there to provide you, again, with the comparables and to give you a range. And if they're an agent who wants your input, and I'm sure you want to give your input, they should be saying to you, what do you want to offer? And you start from there. So never feel like you have to pay what's listed or that you don't have any input into that. It should be what you're comfortable with offering.
Now we get to the home inspection.
There it is, we knew it was somewhere.
Yeah, the point made here is absolutely right. There's no refund desk for a purchase, you know. It takes about 2 or 3 hours if you get a good inspector, and I highly recommend walking through with them. Because you learn stuff, you learn, this furnace is working, so I can't say anything about it. But based on the year it is, you probably have about 5 more good years before you're gonna have to replace it. Your roof's got this many years left on it. So that's a really good, you know, it's good for you to walk through because you'll learn about what is probably gonna be your new house. And it is a negotiating tool. It is something where a seller's condition report, that last bullet point, that says, here's what we found, you know, to you going back to the seller, and you're saying, we want you to fix this, we want you to put a new water heater in, we want you to do this. Or they'll come back and say, well, how about if, to keep the thing moving, we give you a credit, and you get that, we give you that money in settlement, and you can do the work. So,
I have another
so,
question.
go ahead.
It might sound silly, but I just gotta know this. Do they have to tell you if somebody get killed or something in the house?
I don't think
I don't
they
think so.
do.
She
That would
thinks
be
Well, but
money
can you
later.
find out history
And
on
that's
the
a
house
legal
though?
question, so that would be a real estate.
She thinks somebody's been murdered in
And
every
probably
house
not
up there.
one Teresa would be.
Probably your police department would be who would, a realtor will not give you that information.
Just don't buy
one way or
them
the other.
first.
But
Hey.
you could go to the police
Yeah.
department and ask.
one was murder of mine.
Well, yeah, because my very first, when I came up here, 5 years ago, in my house, the lady fell down basement stairs and broke her neck, and my landlord didn't bother to tell me that, and my kids heard it from the neighbor that had been there for a long time, and it
That was
just
the Black
freaked them
Aggie
out.
story we've been saying for years.
Oh,
I
man.
don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but. it-
Well,
it
I
freaked
think
my
the
kids out.
more important thing, Rakonda, when you're looking at home inspections, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law bought a house in Severn Park, nice neighborhood, split level, looked great. Everything was going good. My brother-in-law went to remodel the basement. You know how when split levels, you go upstairs and then down. When he pulled off the paneling in the basement, there, at the one window on the front corner, there was a gap in the, like where the house was pulling away from the window. They did not get a home inspection, didn't have any kind of guarantees. What had happened was the foundation was damaged. And
Shifting.
they had to actually hire a company, jack the whole house up, redo, and they had to come out of pocket with that. The other thing is looking at the floor, under the carpet. You know, hopefully a home inspector would pull that corner back and make sure, or be able to get up under there to make sure your floor is good. You know, most places require termite inspections. So we wanna make sure there are no termites, cause they can damage the heck out of a house.
My
And-
landlord that I have
Yes.
now,
Stain from the
he
inside.
showed me paperwork
Yes,
of all of that
yes.
being done. I'm
Yep.
writing from it, but
Yep.
he showed me paperwork of the exterminator coming in.
Yep.
I mean, all of that. I mean,
Yes.
he's
Yeah,
big.
show
He's a
me
good
paper when
landlord.
you had
You know, we
your
wanna
done.
make sure that you are in a stable home and that you're purchasing a stable home. You know, cause we're the ones giving you the money to do that. So we wanna make sure that
Your
that's
money
a
is in good
stable home.
standing.
So a home inspector is gold, absolute
Yeah,
gold.
I agree, I
And-
agree.
How do you- how do you
And it
pick
can get
a
you
good-
some money back.
How do you pick a good
Well, that's a
inspector?
good, how do you pick a good home inspector, Charlie?
I have, if Charlie wanna
Yeah, go ahead.
insert, ask your real estate agent as one.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, ask your realtor.
And-
They work
and-
with them all,
And
at
Google.
the person you're working with to buy the home, your real
Google
estate
the
agent.
name, Google the
Ask them.
address of the house you're thinking about putting a contract on. You might find out a lady died there in that old news article or something, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh,
Seriously.
that's a good idea.
Dying.
I
Yeah.
would Google the address, you
Fall
know?
down the steps and dying, that's one thing, but murder,
Right.
whole family murder, slaughtered in a house.
But you can find all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
No, I
And
just
then
was
one
wondering if
last-
they had to tell you that.
one last thing, well, I can understand whatever, that would affect the way you found out.
These
One
are
last
negative
thing I wanna
Nancy.
say about home inspection, and I hope it's not on the next slide, good, is that a home inspection is not the same as an appraisal. An appraiser's gone in and they're walking through the house to make sure the square footage and the bedrooms are what they say they are. And then they're gonna go to their office and spend most of their time there pulling up what's called like recent sales, which are called comparable properties that are sold at a certain time within a certain distance. And they're gonna kinda see what that sold for and then measure in a bunch of factors. And then say, here's what we estimate this house is worth. Totally different than a home inspection.
Right.
That's gonna go in, and one other thing they do is they're gonna go to the bathtub and they're gonna turn the water on to see how long you have a good flow in hot water. You know, things like that.
The
You gonna pay that
appraisal-
water bill though?
Go ahead, Teresa.
I think of the appraisal as the instrument for the lender. We're looking at the appraisal to make sure that it fits the credit quality that we're issuing as far as money's involved. But the home inspection is only between you and the home inspector. The bank doesn't want to see your home inspection. So that's something that you're a negotiating tool with the seller. We have our appraiser, as Charlie said, who will go out. We don't want to see your home inspection.
We have a list of several appraisers on our approved list that we review every year. And the bank has to pick that, any bank, any lender has to pick the appraiser and control it. So let's go on. Other expenses to expect prior to closing settlement. Your earnest money, what's earnest money?
What you earn on this money?
I understand you thinking that, it's just like close. It's something as simple as some highfalutin banker one day wanted to sound important and said, let's call it earnest money, or or a realtor. It's your deposit, that's all it is. So if you say, when you put your contract in, you might say, I'm gonna give put $500 on deposit now, or whatever, depending on the cost that you put down. The inspector, we just talked about that. There's an application fee and an appraisal fee. At Arundel, that's just a small credit report fee and an appraisal fee. Any application fees you don't pay until you got the loan, until it's settled. When you go to settlement, you're gonna pay closing costs, which, once again, we would go into more detail in the fall seminar, but it includes like reimbursing for taxes paid in advance by the person you're buying it from, the the money the government gets from you, like transfer taxes, or does that, transfer is
That's
like
county,
half of that?
and the
yeah.
state, the county, the
Yeah.
state, they'll
So-
all take
so
a
there's a
little bit.
bunch. But when you go for your pre-qual, going back a few slides, you get a pretty good estimate of what that's gonna be.
Yeah,
One
And
year
that's
a
really
homeowner.
important to look at because different banks charge different fees. You know, with Arundel, we basically have two. But you may go to a broker, or someone like that, cause a lot of these realtors have their own brokers right in-house. And I have seen lots of fees added into that, not just those couple. You know, there's other fees that they can add in there, underwriting fee. That was
Yeah,
kinda,
that's
yeah.
good advice in the beginning of the loan too, before you get this far. When you apply for your loan, you're gonna get what's called a loan estimate within 3 days of following your application and getting everything in you need to get in. That gives you a list, and we'll go into this more once again. I'm holding you up because we're supposed to be here an hour. And I don't wanna keep you guys, I wanna respect your time. But yeah, it's gonna have a list. If you talk to somebody else, ask them to tell you what their expenses are and compare them. And then the escrow account, anybody know what that's gonna be?
That's where you put your money in, wait a minute. When you're renting, I know escrow, when your landlord not doing the work, you put in the escrow, right?
Yeah,
And if he has a certain amount of time to do the work, and if you don't do it, is that you
no,
get that money back? or
that
something
is
like that?
absolutely true, but in this context,
Okay.
it's money that'll be included in your payment, and you gotta bring some of it at settlement to pay your taxes, insurance, things like that. So your mortgage payment will be what's called P&I, principal and interest, and then it will also be, like escrow, which is normally 1/12 of your tax bill, your insurance bill, so that the bank collects that, and you don't have to worry about that extra burden, they pay the bill for you. So, you know, this, knowing your rights, just Google Fair Housing Act and predatory mortgage lending, just in case you get in with the wrong kind of player, just to know what your rights are, okay? So, just Google Fair Housing Act and predatory lending, and you'll get if you click on the right thing after you Google it, you'll get easy to understand stuff, like knowing your rights. And there we go, I just covered this one because I'm advanced. Principal is a portion of the payment that's used to reduce your loan balance. Interest is the portion of payment used to pay interest that's due. Teresa and I and our families appreciate that, because that's how they pay
helps
us.
pay our salaries.
And that's how we pay interest to our deposits too. If you have a savings account,
No, she Googled her address.
Oh.
oh my,
I'm sorry, I had to say this.
And
I know.
it actually gave
It's not like
their
you're supposed to
name,
go right
who was
now.
living there, and it's given all sorts of
What was that,
information.
predatory or what?
predatory lending. Here we go, right here. Predatory mortgage lending. That's like people who, kind of tell you stuff. Like back several years ago, they had what was called no-doc loans, which were called like liar loans. And you would get a loan officer who was gonna make maybe a whole lot of money by you doing a loan on commission. And they'd say, look, just say you make this much, just say you make that much. And you think, and they'll tell you, that's the way it's done. That's why they have this type of loan. But that's predatory.
That's
That's
why
setting
people
you
have
up and
gotten
taking
into so
advantage of
much
you because they know
trouble.
more than you do because they're in the field.
A
So-
no-doc loan, I could say to you, Rakonda, how much money do you make a year? And you could say an amount, and I'm not looking at your work state, your pay stub. I'll say, well, you know what, we can get you in a much nicer house, we'll just say you make $200,000 a year.
That's gonna hurt you in the long run.
Yes,
That's
it did,
predatory.
yes,
That's
ma'am.
what
That's setting
happened
you
in
up,
Right.
but some people do it.
That's
plus.
why down in PG County, there was a whole lot of people that foreclosed down
Yes,
there.
yes.
Yeah.
Then there's some that are interest-only loans, and
I don't know, one house
Yeah.
they're gonna win.
it's a mess. It could get a
So,
mess.
so as I said before, also a portion of your taxes, portion of your insurance, that's all part of your monthly mortgage payment. And then you got two different types of loans, fixed rate and adjustable rate. Fixed rate, you say, I don't wanna take a chance on interest rates going up, so I want a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, and whatever the rate is, that's what it is. That principal and interest portion never changes, okay? Adjustable rate, you might say, well, I'd rather pay a little less now, because I'm not gonna be in the house very long, and you might get what's called like a 7-1 arm, where it'll stay the same for 7 years, but after that it can change based on what the, like, US Treasury bonds or the LIBOR is. And once again, I think we get into more of that later. Your down payment, you usually need between 3 and 5%. So if you have less than 20% down, then you can get like VA loan, an FHA loan, a private mortgage insurance, which we do. That's just insurance. That's just someone telling the bank they got less than 20% down, but we're gonna make sure that you're okay, and you pay a premium in your monthly payment for that. This is pretty much, we got these slides from Mortgage Guarantee Insurance Corporation in the trade called Magic. This is their sales spiel, so I'm gonna go right through it. And
A lot of these we talked about already.
yeah, we talked about you have to bring a homeowner's insurance, a certified check for any remaining costs. And what you'll get is, I talked about a loan estimate in the beginning. You'll get something that looks almost exactly like it called a closing disclosure. And in certain areas, if the bank misquoted you and it's a lot higher in certain areas, they gotta give you a refund on that credit. You'll get copies of your documents, like your deed and things like that, and the keys to your new home.
Woohoo!
Now you have a home, you're a happy homeowner.
Except
Now
for those
you have
bats,
to
yeah,
take care of it.
It's snakes.
And this is our
The
last
bats and
section,
snakes.
it's only 3 slides.
Yeah.
So we're
The
getting
worst
ready to
part.
land the plane, but this is important to know before you buy it. Okay, maintaining, you need lawn and garden, okay? You need a lawnmower. It's not that difficult, it's not rocket science. Snow removal equipment, a
Shovel.
shovel. If you really want to treat yourself and you keep a close eye on your budget, well, then you might buy a snow blower.
And I have one if you want it, cause
I
I
was gonna
hate it.
say, yeah,
Is
get
there
to
one
know your
that's a good
neighbors.
Yeah.
Get to know
What's
your
neighbors
neighbors.
for?
Pest control, from paying a monthly fee to the Ehrlich man to come out, or just buying a bottle of Raid like I do when the ants come up this time of year, yep.
That's something else to cut the grass, because I know I was looking outside in the back of my house and there's like a hill, a steep hill.
Yeah.
And this guy was trying to cut it with a lawnmower. I'm like, that guy's gonna cut off his leg or something. I was
My
like,
brother actually.
I don't know if I should stay here
We were-
just in
We were
case he
doing my
cuts off
dad's
his
house and he had a hill, and my brother had on like flip-flops, or he was doing it
Really?
barefoot,
Flip-flops.
and he went down the hill and slid underneath the.
Ow!
It happened to
my God.
me, same thing happened to me, but I had brand new tennis shoes on,
Oh,
and
I make my
as
feet
my feet are going under, I'm pushing the lawnmower up.
trying to throw it out, yeah.
And one went off, the left big toe went all the way to the bottom.
Oh, God.
The blade come around and slapped this one, and about 6 months later, the
That can
toe
hurt you.
And talk about like crazy here, 16 60-foot oak trees in the backyard. So now what do I need?
Oh, man, tree agent.
Yeah, I gotta have a
You
guy,
need
a friend,
BG&E.
a rake.
And you might need new pipes
Oh my
depending
God,
on your
it's
system.
killing us, it's
So,
absolutely killing us.
You also, really, you might want to think you need power tools for any of your projects. I find a drill, a power drill.
Flea market.
And I'll tell you,
Yeah,
the power
there you
tool
go.
that's my favorite, when you buy furniture or something, is just something that's cheap, a simple power screwdriver. So you don't gotta be doing this.
Yeah.
And then appliances, you know, you're gonna probably have a refrigerator when you go in and a stove.
Hope for
Yeah.
all.
Maybe, thank you for that plug. Yeah, but you do need it, you know, and you might have to replace it, so you gotta start thinking about that, because you're not gonna call a landlord and say, I need a new refrigerator, I need it for my food goes bad. And then your furniture is definitely a hope for all thing, you know. And I've carried a few houses full of furniture in off
I'm
the
sure.
truck.
They've blessed us numerous times.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I
great.
know they blessed me.
So you probably know Leo, right? Mr.
We
I
Leo.
know
love
Mr.
Mr.
Leo.
He's
Leo.
incredible. That man is just
He's
dedicated.
wonderful.
So, and then the last thing, expect the unexpected.
And you should have
Establish a
money,
reserve.
you should have money put away for the unexpected.
Yes.
And that's perfect, you just set me up, that's the reserve. Your reserve is money, when you get in your budget, you might put in rainy day fund, call it, or
Yeah.
a reserve, and just set a little money aside, so when that bill comes up, you're not saying, how am I gonna live without a kitchen, you know? And that's it, the last thing you gotta do is enjoy your new home. And that's it, any questions? We're done.
Can you say that again, all that stuff again?
Mr. Pat.
Guess
No,
what?
but
Time out.
We have
at
handouts for
Arundel
that.
Federal, we always think about everybody, and what we have to give out is a booklet that pretty much has everything that's in there in a little more detail.
I think it touches on each PowerPoint slide, but again.
It gives a little more
detail
detail.
to each one.
I'm all
Hopefully
right with
that'll-
that.
Be of use to you.
So let me ask you something, would you guys be interested in us